Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to the final WrestleMania season episode of The Payoff for 2022. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. It's the end of April. We're covering our final WrestleMania match, and then we're on to other historic spring matches. I like that we're doing this. We're trying to do the seasons as much as possible. I like this.
Trying to cover things that don't always, there's some missed matches. And so that's why I'm excited about what May has. We've got some kind of, some King of the Ring in June too. We don't always talk about that stuff. And so, WrestleMania is always, there's nothing bigger than WrestleMania season. It's always exciting to move on to the next thing.
Well, it's fun to cover the classics, covering Savage and Warrior is just awesome. And I love it. But we also find these matches that we either don't remember or didn't know existed. I mean, that Savage HBK match that we found, that was awesome. So I love covering these I love being surprised. I was just telling somebody on Twitter the other day, that Shawn Michaels Kurt Angle match from this WrestleMania, dude, it's one of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. And I remember it being good, but I didn't remember it being that good. So I like being surprised. And whether it's a match we don't remember or a match we don't recall how good it was, it's really fun to go back. So all throughout the year, there's a variety of things we get to do, which makes this really fun.
Yeah.
Why did we cover this one?
The first of, it's crazy to think that as much as now Money in the Bank is its own kind of standalone, pay-per-view show. They're going to be in, this year it's a stadium show. LA or not LA, Las Vegas. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, from the humble beginnings, I guess, if you will, to a match that practically opened WrestleMania to filling a brand new stadium in Las Vegas. I think warrants some conversation of how we got there. So,
well, dude, this is crazy because you've got Money in the Bank 4th of July weekend in Vegas at Raiders. Okay. Yep. Then you got SummerSlam end of July where the Titans play. Then you're going over to the UK.
Yeah, in September. Right.
And I believe that next Saudi show is in October.
And
so Lesnar, Goldberg, Rousey, I mean, they're rolling out the red carpet. I mean, you're probably not going to see them, but do they make a call to The Undertaker? I mean, they got a lot of seats to fill and a lot of big shows to put on. Or, this is my fear, or are they at a point where they're like, hey, the product is so hot right now that, we can just put on an okay show. I like when they're a little scared and they have to throw the kitchen sink at these shows.
Well, and one thing that you're not taking into account too is that UK show on September 3rd, the next day on September 4th is all out. So that block your calendar now, the weekend of September 3rd, because you got 2 nights of pay-per-view. So there's going to be a lot happening in September for wrestling. But for right now, though, we're in.
And by the way, think about this. All Out September 4th. Chicago, Punk winning the title against Page.
I maybe. Hey, if there's ever a town to do it in,
could be a big weekend. I don't know either of those things to be true, but it's something to think about.
I don't know if they've announced the location for it yet. I'm assuming they have. But yep, I'm with you.
Big weekend regardless. So yeah, first Money in the Bank. I'm pumped to cover it. You ready to get in this one, Jeff?
This is exciting. I'm ready. All
right. It's time for the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
We're in an arena. Feels so small. And you'll see when we start watching this match, Jeff, it's just, the stage looks small. Everything about this looks small. So,
and this isn't a no-name arena. We're in the Staples Center.
I know. But 18 years later, you're going to have think about this. If I told you in 2005, WrestleMania in 2023, it's going to be in LA. It's going to be 2 nights. It's going to be at the home of the Chargers and the Rams.
Right.
What the hell are you talking about? So how the world has changed, but, and by the way, it'll be headlined with The Rock and his cousin.
Yeah.
And you go, The Rock is still wrestling? No, The Rock's the biggest movie star in Hollywood, but he does come back once in a while.
Yep.
And he's following up in the previous year when Steve Austin came back after a 19-year hiatus. What? That's why this business is so good. This is why I love this shit, Jeff. Yep. So April 3rd, 2005, Staples Center, did over 1 million buys. I was not a fan of this, Jeff, but they did these parody movie things. Yes. Forrest Gump, Braveheart, Basic Instinct, Pulp Fiction, A Few Good Men, Dirty Harry, When Harry Met Sally, Taxi Driver, Gladiator. Not a fan. I thought it was kind of hokey. You want to do 1 or 2 of those, no problem. I have no problem with Triple H being the Terminator, but it was too much. Ton of celebrities ringside, which I'm sure we're going to get again this upcoming year. I'm not going to list them all, but yeah, there's just a ton of them across all different genres. So the show itself, we open with Mysterio and Eddie. Not their best match, but I like the idea of them opening the show. Then we get this Money in the Bank match. Then Taker Orton, which was a pretty good match. Orton was definitely believable to, beat him at WrestleMania. This is hardcore streak, but we are acknowledging that he's never lost at WrestleMania. Trish Stratus defeated Christy Hemme. Then we get that Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels barn buster, which to me, I'm telling you, I feel strongly that it could be one of the top 5 wrestling matches in WrestleMania history. Is it have the, wow factor of Warrior Hogan? No, but in terms of in ring, incredible. Cena defeats Bradshaw. That's the crowning of John Cena, right? He's your world champion. I don't think this was the first time he won it, because WrestleMania 20 beats Big Show and becomes U.S. champ. So this was the crowning moment for John Cena. And then the main event, Batista and Triple H. Batista wins. He's the baby face, goes for that title instead of the other one. Yeah, okay. Not a great card by any means. A good WrestleMania, but gosh, you look at this card versus, what we had a few weeks ago, not even close. So again, really not a great WrestleMania, not bad, but if you paid $40 for it, you'd go, okay. Yeah. So storyline standpoint, how do we get to this? I can't imagine there was a lot of build.
It was all over the board. And so I'll give a little bit of what each wrestler was doing. There was a little bit of overlap here, but, and I'll talk during the match, Jericho kind of came up with this match itself, and I'll kind of talk about that history when we get into this a little bit. But so of course you had the initial idea was supposed to be a submission match between Edge, Jericho, and Benoit. and then a ladder match between the other guys. And so they kind of brought it together. And so Jericho, he had been teaming up with Orton, Benoit, and Maven to take on Triple H, Batista, Edge, and Snitsky at Survivor Series. Great match there. And so that you had the winning team would be manager or general manager of Raw for a little bit. So you got to see that a little bit. New Year's Revolution, Jericho, it was an elimination chamber match with Triple H, Benoit, Batista, Randy Orton, and Edge. And so you're starting to see some of the names come into play here. That was for the vacant World Heavyweight Championship. And Triple H eventually won that one. Jericho beaten by Batista in that one. So Christian, of course, not winning the Intercontinental Championship from Shelton Benjamin. So again, starting to see some crossover with some of these guys as well too, and just being involved in some of the storyline. New Year's Revolution, again, just having a match as well too, failing to win the titles. He was in the Royal Rumble as well too, but he was eliminated by Batista on that. Chris Benoit, he had a feud. It was actually with Edge. It was at Taboo Tuesday, which I will shout from the high heavens to bring back either cyber, bring back the cyber events and all that stuff where we're voting on it. Benoit, Edge, and Michaels were in that one. It was actually polled to see who would face Triple H for the title that night. Michaels actually got the most votes. And so Edge and Benoit were actually teamed up against La Resistance that night. So you had that. And so you had a Survivor Series again, Benoit with Randy Orton's team, and Edge with Triple H. And so we kind of, again, seeing the back and forth there a little bit. So you had a Benoit and Edge feud. It was actually at New Year's Revolution. It was in that Elimination Chamber match. Both the guys lost, actually, of course. But they still had a few matches, but the feud itself was kind of, not really going anywhere at that point. Edge, like we've talked about a little bit here, kind of what was happening there. Edge defeating their match at Royal Rumble, Edge defeating Michaels at that one. And so he was actually one of the final three in the Rumble itself that night, but was eliminated by Batista and John Cena. And then Kane actually was Unforgiven. So not, a couple months before this one, he would going on to marry Lita. Congrats to the happy couple. And so that was part of the storyline in there as well too. It was debut of Snitsky, which sure, that's fine. Kane had actually he had this match with Shawn Michaels. It was that no DQ match. He was actually gone for a little bit to go film the cinematic classic See No Evil with the 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. I made sure to check that out. That was 58 reviews, not a great one. The second one better received 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, but Kane off doing the movie thing. And then Shelton Benjamin, again, Taboo Tuesday at that one. He was actually chosen to be in an intercontinental match against the champ at the time, Chris Jericho, which had Benjamin winning that one. That was actually his first title with WWE. And so he actually had a nice little run here with its Survivor Series, beating Christian, Maven at New Year's Revolution, Jericho at Backlash. And so it's the match itself. No, there was not we're going to put all these six guys in a ring and we're going to make it make sense storyline wise of why these are the six that are in the ring. However, these guys were having matches in really like the 8 to 10 months leading up to this. And so it wouldn't have been uncommon at the time to see these guys in the ring together, but like a cohesive plan of, hey, here's how we're going to get here and why we're doing this stipulation for the first time, mind you, there was it never played into any of this. So, yeah.
I'm pumped to cover it.
Yeah.
This will be a fun one. And I like Money in the Bank because like the pay-per-view, because it makes sense to say, hey, going into the summer, we're just going to mix things up and do this. My only issue with like theme pay-per-views, I think, is Hell in a Cell. Because I'm just like, why? Yep. Like, I would rather use that throughout the year. Hey, the main event of SummerSlam is a Hell in a Cell match. Elimination Chamber makes sense. We're going to do a couple of these to determine who moves on to WrestleMania.
Yep.
So, all right.
Last Hell in a Cell was bad, but that's a different conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm pumped to cover this one. Let's get right into it. We are at the 30-minute mark of WrestleMania 21, 30-minute mark on the dot, WrestleMania 21. Jeff, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
All right, so Edge coming to the ring here. We'll get that music back eventually, just not right now. I love what they're doing with Edge, by the way.
Well, we talked about last week. We will see the Christian Edge reunion at some point. Will we see Gangrel? I'll ask you this week.
Nah, because I don't think they really like him, and I think he's kind of old and he's kind of like an indie guy. I wouldn't put him with them, but I do want some other people. I know like Rhea Ripley kind of has a look that like seems like it fits there, but I'd love a faction. Yeah, I just love factions, and it gets people over. Jeff, I care about Damian Priest more now than I did a month ago.
Yep,
that's the point of factions. That's what you want to do. You want to get guys over. So, I mean, how great and how well qualified is Edge to take another performer or two or a tag team? Okay. You think Riddle's gotten it over at all being around Randy Orton for the past year?
Incredibly over now.
Oh, yep. My God. It's
the visual, like you said, one short ramp, but two, can I say how cool it looks with the flaming ladders? Even like the little tiny ramp looks ridiculous, but like the flaming ladders with Kane coming out was a fantastic visual. So, well, I do. And how, I don't know if you watched the Wheeler Yuta match the other night from AEW, like, boy, motherfucker is over after taking on Moxley. Like that was like, and now he's part of the stable. Like, how do you get someone like, how excited is he got to be? He's with Daniel Bryan. You've got Mox, you've got William Regal as your manager, and now you're the fourth guy in that. Like, man, like, and that was a great match too. He got over like crazy, but yeah, that was fantastic. But to your point about that, you and I, for as long as this show has been on, you and I have talked about the power of a faction. And so, why we don't see more of it. Like, how many guys is Jericho putting over just by putting the Jericho Appreciation Society right now? Like, it's a totally different crew of people, and he's getting them over as well. Like, just
speaking of Shelton Benjamin, the Hurt Business, I like that. Why not keep that? Keep that tag team around Bobby Lashley. They can take some bumps for him. I'd try and put him with Omos now if you could. But Omos,
it needs another person. Like you need a Shelton. Like I don't think MVP alone can get that over. But at the same time, if you're going to try, this is the way to do it. And if Lashley's going to do the job for him, like why not? Like yeah,
Jericho's knee pads out of his tights look so stupid.
He looked compared to like young. Again, I keep saying they look young as hell, of course. And so,
we're watching matches from 20 years ago.
I know. It's just crazy to think like we're still seeing some of these guys. There's Benjamin flying high though. Woo. Flying over the top rope. So,
there's only one guy left.
Oh boy. Kane is up on the top rope now.
Wow.
And now Kane. Woo. High flying.
I have a point to make, and then I have some fantasy booking to do.
Go.
My point is they decided to do this show in an arena. Tickets sold out in under a minute. They did 7 million of ticket sales. Why in the hell were they doing these in arenas at this time? I understand why you do it in an arena when business is down. They sold $7 million of tickets in less than a minute.
When did they switch over to stadiums?
Well, so they did some stadium shows. So like 17 was at the Astrodome. 18, Canada, Toronto. 19, Safeco. 20 MSG. Okay. So I think they said, okay, 20 MSG, 21, let's go to LA. I understand there wasn't a football stadium in LA, so that's probably how they ended up in here. Then they went to Chicago. Same thing. I think they wanted to be in a big city and have the event in a big city. They weren't thinking big venue. You're not going to have it outdoors in Chicago at that time. Then they went to Detroit, and then it was all stadiums from then on out. So they were but again, they could have filled a stadium, but I think they wanted LA. They wanted Chicago. So anyways, let me give you a little fantasy booking.
Sure.
Money in the Bank is in Vegas this year.
Yep.
What I would do is I would bill it as the biggest Money in the Bank matches ever. And on the men's side, I'd try to get like Lesnar, Cena, Goldberg in that match. You can protect them all. No one has to take a pinfall. No one has to do like a ton of, crazy bumps. But wouldn't that be cool? And then on the women's side, you could do Trish and Lita. And again, plus all the stars. But it's like, dude, give me an opportunity for a minute to see, Lesnar and Goldberg face to face one more time. Give me Trish and Lita actually beating the shit out of each other. Give me, Trish and Bianca Belair looking each other in the eye. Like, give me Lashley and Cena for a few minutes. Like, I think you could do something really cool. And again, no one has to lose. You can have a mix of younger guys and veterans in there. But I think that could be a lot of fun. I really, really do.
You don't almost get a burn off to some of these like feuds that didn't really get a good ending either. And so, and maybe you put somebody like, you don't need a younger guy in there necessarily. Maybe you put someone like AJ in there, and AJ is the one that goes over, and then AJ just always has the belt,
but you get to see AJ and Cena mix it up for a minute.
Right.
It's like kind of like a
best SummerSlam matches ever. Yeah.
But it's kind of like a surprise Royal Rumble type vibe to it.
Yep.
But, you put them in the match. And, I think you can protect them. I think, and I'm not saying it would happen, but it's like, it would be a spot for like a Taker where he could come in and, and do some moves, and you'd be like, this is great without him being, without him having to do a full match. Again, not suggesting it, but hey, let's throw Shawn Michaels into this. I mean, there's a lot you could do, but you would bill them as the biggest Money in the Banks ever because you're trying to fill a stadium.
I hope too, and we're a long ways out, and I feel like it's a double-edged sword. I don't want any cash-ins that night, but I also feel like the further we get away from Money in the Bank, the less they know how to handle the briefcase. And so, the storylines get lost. You got, they almost forget who has it. And so, which I think kind of Carmella fell prey to that of just like, they didn't really know. We knew she had it, but they didn't really know everything that was happening. And so,
and with a men's one and a women's one of those, you kind of need to burn off pretty quickly because two of them around's kind of weird too.
Yeah, and I also like okay, make it be we don't really see a whole lot of like someone losing the briefcase, which I feel like is kind of like them switching angles and directions of where they want to go, and like they all of a sudden they're not over on someone having the briefcase that won it. I'm not as big a fan of that, but I also think too, like you said, there's opportunity. Maybe give us a little like mystique to it. Like, let us know, like, hey, maybe this person is going to lose it. Like, like someone I might think like, if Otis is taking on AJ, I might think like, okay, like, yeah, he's probably going to lose it to AJ. However, like maybe Bobby Lashley gets it. Like, he's going to get his chance again and he's going to cash in. I can see any more too now. Like, he's going to cash in at a Saudi show or something like that, which, who knows, just the crossover there, if they're paying that much attention.
The other thing too is like I want main eventers winning this, and I understand elevating someone, but I want Cody to win this, not Otis, right? Like Carmella and Otis, and it's just gotten watered down. Like I like RVD wins it and he says, "Here you go," or hey, Miz or Edge. I mean, these guys are going to be like the guy, at least for a period of time. So I just don't want it watered down at all. That's again why I agree with you. Load it with main eventers and make it a big deal.
Okay, so now we're talking about being watered down in some of this stuff, and we've seen it over the last couple of weeks. I saw an article about what I'm about to say too recently. Is the brand split over? Are we moving in that direction?
Well, you bring up a great point, which is something that I had on my list. I don't think you end the brand split, but I think what you do is you consolidate your championships.
Which it looks like that's what they're doing. Yep.
Exactly. So give me one world champion for the men and for the women. Give me one tag champion for the men and the women. Maybe you have IC title on one show, US title on the other show, but you consolidate that. And then, Roman Reigns, he can bounce between the two shows. And it also helps you from it also helps you from a TV standpoint. And that way you can tell, Fox and USA, hey, our top stars, our top champions, though they could show up on your show either week. And, we'll have them. So it's not we want Roman on Fox. Well, you can have them on both shows. You can have Charlotte on both shows if she's the champion.
Well, we're getting Cody on both shows. We're getting, these people on shows.
I mean, you have so many wrestlers that you kind of need to keep someone, you know what I mean? Or you just completely get rid of it, but you got to figure out a way where, people can, I don't want to consolidate and say, hey, Cody's going to cut promos on Mondays and Fridays. Well, you're going to overexpose the guy.
Yep.
So if you want to have them bounce around, that's fine. I can see keeping things split. Or you don't, or you just have one continuous thing. And every week we have 5 hours of television and we're just going to, but to me, I don't necessarily care what you do with the rosters. My biggest thing is you got to consolidate the titles. There's too many titles. They mean nothing. Have your champions go on both shows. The rosters, I don't care what you do. I think I lean towards let's not separate the rosters because sometimes you get these things where it's really thin and you say, oh, the current tag team division on Raw and there's 4 teams and one of them you don't even care about. It's too much. So I think for women's tag division, men's tag division, it can get really thin really quick. And even with the singles, it can. So yeah, I think you blow it up. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I wonder too, then how do you alter the draft? Even if we don't call it a draft anymore, how do you, and maybe you do have certain people, get away from the free agent or something like that. But you can have dedicated people on certain shows. And so you kind of know what you're getting into and stuff like that. But, and we're seeing, especially with the brand split, you've got, it almost feels odd that you've got, for as long as Mandy Rose has had the belt forever down on NXT, the women. Also, you've got who is Dolph as well too, running around with the NXT belt, which putting over some younger guys, things like that. But I think it's done some good for some of that. Natalya showed up 2 weeks ago or whatever it was on NXT as well. And so I think using that to kind of put people, I think you're missing out on you're not giving yourself as many opportunities when you have people locked into the different brands, because we've said it too, how small is the women's tag division right now? I think you and I have both seen in the last week or so, that list of top heels and top faces on both brands. There's only 3 people on those lists. Now that might just be the internal list of the top 3 or something like that. But
no, but it's thin.
You're right. It's thin. And I think of that. For our Office fans out there, when Robert California had his list of column A and column B, and where he was said, he's losers prove me, or, prove me right, prove me wrong type thing. And so I think that's where some of these people, it's harder to get a chance if they're on one show. And so, but it also at the same time, let's mix it up a little bit. Like you said, I know that's why the 24/7 title was a thing, which is now really not a thing as much as it used to be, because they wanted their own belts. Okay, let's get some more exposure for the US and the Intercontinental belts. That's how you do it. I mean, when's the last time we had a US Open challenge? It's been forever. They even said how was Finn Balor was left off the WrestleMania card and he was the champ. So Stuff like that. It's just, finding those kind of opportunities. It's weird. But
I think it lends itself to way more creativity. You have deeper rosters. I think consolidating the titles makes them mean a hell of a lot more. And then the other thing too is like, if you combine the rosters, you have a lot of star power. So it's like, I tune into Raw, I don't know who's showing up. Like, I mean, not that you can't announce matches and stuff like that in advance, but it's like, anything can happen. Right now, not as much can happen. So, yeah, I like the idea of doing that.
Well, and recently they were my hometown in Detroit a couple of weeks ago with Raw, and I thought like they did such a great job on that show of like, I didn't know who was coming. I thought there was going to be overexposure because they did the Miz TV segment with him and Cody, but then also like it worked out well because then we knew the match we were getting.
And they built to it. I cared about that match. I like the idea of setting up a killer main event for later in the show. I thought that was awesome.
Why not do that more often? Like Miz on the mic too is like unbeatable right now. I just feel like dude's always going to be selling like crazy. But
oh god, Benoit headbutt to the top of the ladder
to Kane, big sell there.
Bleeding.
Yep.
And that looks like a previous cut was opened up.
Yeah. And so it's a bloody nose too. Crazy. Real quick, I do want to get into where did the Money in the Bank come from? So here's the quote that I actually have from Jericho talking about this one. He said, so I came up with the idea to do a match, like a ladder match, a 6-way ladder match. And one of the former writers, Brian Gerwitz, who was a good writer at the time, said, well, that's a stake. So I said, well, why don't you have a contract where the winner gets a title shot at the next night? Then Brian said, well, why don't you make it so you can use it anytime over the following year and you can cash it in? Chris Jericho then revealed that they took the idea to Vince McMahon and he loved it. However, the only condition was it had to be in a briefcase. Jericho speculated that Vince wanted it to be seen as a trophy, something the superstars could carry around and use. He described it as a 3-way invention. So it was a really cool kind of 3-way invention of this match because even though Vince's little thing was just a briefcase, the briefcase has become synonymous with the show, said Jericho about the Money in the Bank ladder match, which like right now it is just a standard briefcase over the ring. Like there's no branding on it, which like how that has evolved over time too, to be what it is, which, but as much as people, Vince booking and this and that, like, boy, he made the right call there. Like,
bro, people buy those things. You see Money in the Bank briefcases all the time.
Yeah, I know. So that might be, I'm going to put it on my wedding registry. That would be nice to have, just kind of sitting around. I don't know if the girlfriend will go for that, but that'll be good.
And there's your
Edge pulling it down. Cool. And the Contra run away. Yep. Good stuff. Fun. Okay.
Well, I'm sure you'll tell us what happened with Edge holding the briefcase. Let's get into the aftermath.
Oh, it's time for the aftermath.
All right. Initial thoughts.
Not bad. I think the concept is, you could tell it's very much in its infancy. They were going for the trying to grab it and stuff like that. Yeah, for me, it's more about where it went versus where it is in this moment in 2005. But I still think, really cool. Some interesting spots. There wasn't, I think, after last week and watching that match, like the TLC match, it was this couldn't live up to that, I don't think. But in regards to the concept itself is a 10. We know how that's gotten, but not bad though. I think, there's involvement with everyone, some good spots. So it wasn't bad.
Yeah, it wasn't a great match. I mean, again, it's more historic than anything else. Obviously some good spots, some good moments. But it wasn't like, oh my God, what a classic. I mean, obviously last week we watched the TLC match. That was a whole different level of ladder match.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm actually glad, I'll say this, I'm glad that there was nothing like that at WrestleMania this year. Save it. I don't need to see multi-man ladder matches. Give me 2 a year on the Money in the Bank. Maybe you do one in NXT throughout the year. That's all I need. That's enough.
Well, anyway, we didn't get Andre, but that's different conversation. But cool. Okay. So Edge on this one, kind of going over what happened with everybody on this one. It was actually, I'm on my wrong part of my notes here. Here we go. He would actually hold on to the briefcase until the following year at New Year's Revolution, where he cashed in on John Cena after Cena had actually just been in the Elimination Chamber match to retain his title. That, it was actually Vince who revealed that he was cashing in to face Cena at that moment. And after 2 spears, Edge defeated Cena to win the championship, which was his first title win. So, and then, of course, as we all know, the following night was the Edge having the, I'll quote it here, the hot unbridled sex in the middle of the ring. And so from the highs to the lows, but boy, did we all tune in to see that. So get that. So that was, of course, great. Jericho on this one. His backlash, he actually took on Shelton Benjamin for the Intercontinental Championship, but lost that one. He lost to Lance Storm at One Night Stand. And so turned heel as well, too, after this. And so he ended up feuding actually with Cena, losing with the championship match at SummerSlam. And so they had a lot of back and forth there. And so you had Christian as well, too, getting involved with him as well, too, and having back and forth with him. Ended up really just a lot of back and forth. You ended up a little bit after this, you had the creation of the Peep Show as well, too. The interview segment, of course, taking on a lot of, he just really a lot happening. It was Booker T, a fatal 4-way match with Benoit, which kind of came at No Mercy like a few months after this. So just a lot happening in that regard. Of course, Benoit was drafted first in the SmackDown draft in 2005. And so, taking on Eddie actually at ECW One Night Stand. And so that was going on as well, too. You had Kane actually getting into it with Lita, Trish Stratus, Edge, all this different stuff. And so Viscera as well, too. So him taking on Viscera at Backlash and kind of having that match and going on. And then finally, Edge and Kane had been feuding. So you had a stretcher match between those guys in July, actually. So a lot happening there. So, and then lastly, Shelton Benjamin losing. He actually, of course, having the title, but then losing it to Carlito after some kind of shenanigans as well, too. He was actually one of the longer Intercontinental Championship reigns of 244 days. And then competing in the next ladder in the match. Wow, Money in the Bank ladder match the following WrestleMania, and kind of feuding with Rob Van Dam to try and get Rob Van Dam's contract. And so, and eventually losing the match and the title to Rob Van Dam. So, just, the story, like I say, storylines just continued. Like there was some new stuff. There was people taking on each other. There was just things happening. So, PWI on this year with, again, some low numbers, or I guess high numbers, I guess is the best way to put it. You had Edge at number 8, Benjamin at number 9. You had Benoit at 13, Kane at 19, Jericho at 25, and Christian at 30. And so, these guys kind of where they ranked up very high. It is the best way to put it. So these guys kind of holding their own. They were like we kind of said at the top here, they had a lot of different interconnecting storylines, different feuds between each other, but really these guys' numbers were up there. And so, it's so interesting. I saw, kind of back and forth. And so it was actually on Jericho's podcast. Edge said that he initially did not like the idea of the ladder match, and he even told management not to include him in the card. However, he's talked into competing by the other participants like Jericho and Kane, who said the match had the potential to be a big success. And so, he ends up winning the match after that's true, not wanting to be in it. But the Observer newsletter on someone, and so actually the write-ups on this, it ended up getting 4.5 stars. Said JR reminded us that winning got a guaranteed title shot at any point during the next 12 months, and Lawler said if they were patient, they could just hold off until WrestleMania 22. Actually, if it's any time, that means they could replace Big Dave tonight. That was never mentioned, of course. That this was a train wreck, but a goddamn 1999, 2000 caliber, crazy, incredible train wreck. And so, and of course, and then referencing the Dave Bautista and Triple H match, which at the time, like it's almost funny to think like Meltzer realized that hey, he could actually cash in tonight if he wanted to. We know that now we see it more often of people cashing in the same night and things like that. But would have been crazy if that had happened, actually. Like, if that was part of the storyline where Edge cashed in on that first night, like, that would have been insane. And so talk about that fantasy book that one day. But we got there. That's okay. And so good stuff. So really on this, 4.5 stars, Tom, where are you going to put this one? What are you thinking?
I mean, there's some, historical value to this. But yeah, again, it wasn't like a great match, and maybe I'm just jaded. I've seen so many of these damn ladder matches. For me, this is like a 6.5. And I've seen way better ladder matches. There was some star power in there, but it wasn't, oh my goodness, it was great. So yeah, I just, good, not great. Bonus points because it was historic. It led to, it was the first one. Edge wins, he becomes champion, blah, blah, blah. But that's kind of where I am. What about you?
Yeah, I'm at a 7. I'm at the same boat. I think that historically we know where this went. As the first match itself, no, it was not, it was good. It wasn't great. It was very middle ground on that. But knowing what Money in the Bank has turned into since, like, we've got that hindsight of, 20 plus year, almost 20 years, 15 years of knowing kind of where this went, like, and how it's like, it's now called the Big Five because of Money in the Bank. And so, so there is absolutely something to be said for that, of kind of what it has done. And it's one of the more fun, like, if I had to rank it at this point, I'd actually put it like above Survivor Series and kind of what they've been doing with Survivor Series. And so, because, they're not booking everything great, of course. So, but at the same time, like, it's hard to not enjoy this. And the concept itself is just so cool and kind of what they do. So yeah, I'm at a 7 on this one.
Okay.
Good stuff.
You want to preview what we're doing next week?
What are we doing? We can do a few things here, actually. So we're getting into May, of course. We're going to mix it up a little bit. We've got a few matches that we haven't talked about, some people we haven't talked about. And I know we got next week is a big one. We're going back to WCW. We hear you, fans. We know we like covering some WCW around here too. So we're doing Spring Stampede 1998. This is, of course, DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, and the friend of the pod, big, supporter of us, and we love them around here. DDP and Raven, in a Ravens rules match. And so for the US, the WCW US heavyweight champion. So that one, I'm excited. I don't remember that one at all, but I know I ranked it. It was, on our list. It has been for a while. So I'm excited to talk about that one.
Cool. I'm pumped, man. WrestleMania season is officially over. Got a great slate of matches coming up. Starting to get a little warmer out. If someone wants to clean up downstairs a little bit, how can they access discount code through our friends at Manscaped?
This is manscaped.com. Our promo code hasn't changed. It is payoff20, payoff20. You get 20% off, free shipping. They got all kinds of good stuff. Tom and I can't, I feel like I say it every couple of weeks. No bullshit. Like, this is great products. Tom and I use all of it. We've bought the stuff that we don't have. It's absolutely worth it. And it's, spend a little bit more money on something that works really well and it will not fail you. And so, and with our promo code, you're not really spending a whole lot more money. So absolutely check it out. Manscaped.com, using that code payoff20, payoff20, free shipping and 20% off. Get it now.
All right. Always fun, my man. Always fun.
Always. Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy these. I hope everyone enjoys going down memory lane, listening to us riff and fantasy book and review, and hope you enjoyed as much as we do. So as always, thank you for joining us on The Payoff.